All right, and I'm just going to spotlight myself so you can see. Now, folks, if you're using an iPhone and you cannot see both of my screens, which you should be able to see now, what you can do is you can toggle your screen and move me over, and that way you'll see both my videos. If you're using a regular computer, you should see a screen here and a screen here. So my cutting board, and I'll make sure to show you everything that's going on. Okay, my name is Brooke. I use she, her pronouns. I work at Just Roots, and I have the pleasure of teaching our kitchen intuition workshop. And these workshops are designed to be learning experiences. And sometimes the dishes we make turn out perfect and beautiful, and sometimes they're a little bit messy and sloppy, and that's okay. This is a space for you to ask any questions that you might have about cooking dishes, cooking different cuisines. Please do talk if you'd like to, but when you're finished, make sure to mute yourself. You can also put anything in the chat that you're wondering, and Kyle will relay that message to me or answer it himself. Okay, so today we are making one of my favorite foods. We're making a vermicelli noodle bowl, which is a Vietnamese dish. We're actually making them today with a different type of rice noodle, a stir-fry noodle, not the traditional vermicelli, but it really is going to taste super similar. They're both rice noodles. They just have one is flat and one is round. And so we're going to be making that with either vegetarian tofu, or we'll be doing the protein is bone-in chicken today. And this dish is a really great dish for summer because it's bright and uplifting with like tangy, vinegary, tons of vegetables packed in there. There's actually not that much cooking that actually happens. It's a lot of just veggie prep. It's really similar to Vietnamese spring rolls. If you've made those before, you probably have if you've been in this class for a while. And yeah, I'm going to go through some of the stuff that I have out today that is going to be helpful for the cooking process. And then we're going to dive into preparing our marinade. Now, if you have tofu, I'm just going to say just follow along with us. We're going to have a few extra steps where we're preparing the chicken. But really, you're going to be using the same marinade and the sort of the same cooking methods as we are. So just so you know, if you have tofu, that's what you can do. If you're vegetarian, you also might want to opt out from the fish sauce that may have come in your kit. It probably didn't if you're vegetarian, but you're going to want to make sure you leave that out. That's not vegetarian. And they do have vegetarian fish sauces available at some like really large Asian markets. It's tough to find. You might want to order it, but that is an option for you in the future. And if you're gluten-free, you should have a gluten-free soy sauce in your kit. If folks, you're just arriving, please go ahead and put your name in the chat so we know that you're here. I'm going to go ahead and go through the supplies we have today. So for vegetables, we have carrots. We're going to grate the carrots or slice them really thin. So you might want to get out some kind of grater if you have it, or a handheld grater. We have some scallions or green onion, some cucumber, limes. This is great if you have a juicer of some sort. It would be awesome to use one of these. If not, you can use your hands like I usually do in these videos. We've got some garlic, bean sprouts. You are asked to provide your own cooking oil and lettuce of some sort or greens. So make sure you get those out. Cilantro or mint. And then we have a can of bean sprouts that are going to get drained, rinsed, and put on top. So to rinse them, I just got a little colander. Almost there. You're going to want some measuring spoons as you get used to working with fish sauce. You don't want to pour too much. It's a very powerful scent and taste. Some of your rice noodles. I got some brown sugar. You'll find in a lot of Vietnamese and Thai cuisine, there's always a balance of sweet, salty, umami, and acidity. I have fish sauce. You can either, if you have rice vinegar at home, you're welcome to use that. We didn't We weren't able to order rice vinegar in bulk this time, but rice vinegar is more traditionally used, but you're welcome to use apple cider vinegar too. And some cooking oil, chicken or tofu. And one thing that sometimes is helpful working with chicken like this is having a pair of scissors on hand and a sharp knife. Great. I guess we are going to get started. So the first step is we want this is my first time doing this too, but we have chicken with the bone-in chicken. And so what we're going to actually try to do is isolate the breast from the bone here. And I highly encourage you, if you are able to make some chicken stock with these bones, there's going to be a lot of bone and a little bit of meat left over from this. So I would stick it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'll go slow enough so everyone can see what's happening. I have a separate cutting board that I'm using for my chicken, but you can wash yours really good if you have to use the same one for veggies. Now, so I've got 2 breasts that I want to cut off of this chicken. And if you flip it upside down so that the breasts are down, so you're looking at the rib cage, you can see the individual ribs. Sometimes it's helpful for some people to actually cut, I'll do it on one side, just so you can see, to actually cut through those ribs to give yourself a, I guess like a better way of seeing the breast. So you could cut those back, and now it's probably hard to see on your end, but I can see where I want to cut really easily. I see the bone and where the breast starts. So you can do that. You kind of need a sharp pair of kitchen shears, or you need to break it. And this is all great to make stock from. So I'm going to hold on to it. Or you could not do that if you don't have kitchen shears. You could also use a knife to do it. And notice the bones are pretty easy to cut through with this. They're just little rib bones. The only one that's hard is at the very top where the arm bone starts. And I just turn it backwards and break it off. All right, and I'm going to leave my chicken with the breast side down. Okay, the next part can be a little bit tricky, but what we're going to do, I like to grab a hold of it, and I'm going to try to find where the bone is with my knife, and I can see it. And I'm going to take a sharp knife, and I'm going to follow the edge of the bone. So if you think about this, what I'm doing is I'm getting this nice big part off. And it's okay if the skin comes off. This recipe does not require the skin to be on. And so I'm just, if you don't have a super sharp knife, just take it nice and slow and easy, okay? So I'm just making little cuts, releasing the meat from the bone. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now as I stop. So I'm getting the meat off the bone, trying to get as much meat as possible. And if you hit a point that's like too hard, it's okay. Just take a little break from it, move up further the chicken or further down. So let's see how it's starting to fall like this. That's exactly what we want. And just so folks know, like this, we got these from a local farm, Reed Farm, and that's how they like to sell their chicken breast bone in. And it's when you have this skill down, I feel silly for not doing it before. If you're ever cooking with chicken breasts, it's a much cheaper way to buy chicken is with the bone on, and then you get to use the bones to make a stock. So it's really nice. And there's going to be a little bit of a tendon that I'm going to cut at up top. Perfect. And you can even flip and see what your progress looks like. So you'll have your flap of skin. And then you can also cut from the other side. And I'm going to pull the skin off, and I'm going to actually hold on to that for my stock. If you pull back the skin, it's sometimes easier to see what you're doing. And I've got my beautiful little breast. If anyone has questions about this part, please feel free to ask if you're struggling. It's good for us to know, and it's I'm sure other people are too. There we are. I'm going to set that aside as I work on the other one. And if you want to cut off your, just be careful, but if you want to cut off your skin ahead of time, you could do that. Either I'm going to use this for my stock or my dog's going to get a very good treat. Yeah, Kyle put a great, I don't have that sharp with knives. And we should all have them because sharp knives mean you cut yourself once. But the sharper the knife, the better, pretty much for everything. Everything in the kitchen. And also just another tip, if it's not that sharp, is take small cuts like I'm doing here. And don't expect the knife to go through the whole chicken. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip my chicken over and I'm going to release the breast with little cuts from the bone. And if you don't feel like you got a lot of the chicken off, you can still come through and get little pieces because we can cook those the way that we're going to be preparing this meat for this dish today. So even if it's not a whole breast, that's totally fine. This makes you appreciate the people who work in your local grocery butcher quite a bit, and this is one of the easier things to process. And if you're ahead of me because you have a nice sharp knife or you already knew how to do this, you can cut off some of the fat or tendon that may be left behind. Okay, great. So I just cut off a little piece of chicken. We can still use that that I missed on my original cut. Like so. And that's fine. And don't wash your hands yet because we're going to keep cutting this. How are folks doing? Do we need to slow down or can we move on? Just turn on your mic if you want to slow down. Okay. I lied about hand washing because I want to show one method that is, you do not have to do this, but oftentimes when I'm grilling meat that's going to be on a cast iron or on a stove, I like to get it really thin, and I do so by pounding it. So you can pound it into a Ziploc bag, or you can pound it just with a rolling pin or whatever heavy item you have. But my goal is to tenderize this chicken breast and to get it nice and flat, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay. So we are going to put the breast inside of a Ziploc or just put it straight on your cutting board, whatever you want. We don't even have to close it up. Just make sure they're separate. And then I'm going to use a rolling pin and just gently hit it. You don't want to beat it so it completely falls apart and separates, but you do want to, I don't know, I'm just giving a little bit of pressure. I have a nice heavy rolling pin and it's gently starting to flatten those chicken breasts. This will also help the chicken cook evenly and all the way through when we cook it. I'm going to do this for another 20 seconds. Hopefully it's not too loud on your computer. Fabulous. Okay. And then we'll pull it back out. And because we're doing a quick marinade, I only do this if it's a quick marinade, but I poke a few holes in the chicken to help it uptake some of those juices. So I'm just poking some quick holes, flip it, poke on the other side. This is just a trick to quickly marinate your meats. Tofu is so porous, so you wouldn't have to do this with tofu. Okay. And now we get to cut. I'm gonna get a sharper knife after this, a larger one. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're kind of like grilling this chicken. So we're gonna do it in like little strips. I'll show you how big it is on the next, or on the first few that I do. So imagine these being cooked and then tossed on top of the salad. Just little chicken strips. It doesn't matter if you go long ways or sideways. The important thing is relatively even thickness so that they cook around the same time. And at this point, still, if you're finding any tendons or big hunks of fat that if you don't like eating those, you can cut them out. Great. So we've got some chicken strips. You could even maybe try to make a chicken broth with some of this, like a Vietnamese pho chicken broth with some of your leftover carcass and such. All right, folks, my chicken is all cut up into like nice kind of like tenders, and I've got a bowl out, and we're gonna sit them in a marinade. So go ahead and put those in the bottom of the bowl. And then once those are in, you can clear your workstation and wash your hands. And I'm going to use the same Ziploc bag to store my chicken for making broth.
Brooke, hi. Can you
Hi.
hear me? Could you hold up one of the strips again?
Yes.
Thank you.
You caught me right before I washed my hands. Nice job. Here's two for reference.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Okay, hand washing, sorry for the noise. Excellent. Okay. So Kyle will write down the instructions for this. So if we get a step ahead of you, that's okay. We'll make sure we put the instructions for how much of stuff to use in your marinade. We're going to start with lime juice. So if you don't have a juicer, the trick that I usually find is I'll use a spoon or a knife to kind of break up, because limes can be a little bit tougher than lemons. I'll break up each of those sections and then give it a squeeze. The nice thing about a juicer is you do get quite a bit extra juice out. And we're going for about 2 tablespoons in this marinade for this much chicken. So I'd say each half of a lime, if it's a good lime, is typically about 1 tablespoon. So you're going to do 1 full lime. Good, good. All right. Next, we're gonna mince, and it doesn't have to be super tiny, but you do want, the more surface area we have for the garlic, the better. So we're gonna mince, I'm gonna make sure you can see me. We're gonna mince a bit of garlic. And we probably all got the same garlic, and they're nice big cloves. So if you have a clove as large as the one I just cracked, you might only need 1. Now, with this recipe, I think over time, when you're cooking these foods, you're gonna find maybe you love garlic and you could add 6 cloves in it if you want to. Sometimes I do that, and you want it to be overpowering. You can't really go wrong by being a tablespoon or an extra ingredient off, aside from the fish sauce, which can be quite overpowering if you're not used to the taste of fish sauce, and you might grow to love it like I do and want to use way more than the recipe calls for. Kyle, do you know how fish sauce is made?
I do not know how fish sauce is made.
I think, I'm not positive, but I think it's actually like a long-term fermentation of anchovies and water. And I can't imagine, I think there's like a city where a lot of fish sauce is made and they have outdoor tubs of it. And I can't imagine what it smells like there. It's probably, I mean, they probably have incredible fish sauce, but it's probably a very stinky place to visit.
I just looked it up and it says that fish sauce is, I mean, depending on where it's made, it's fermented for 3 to 12 months,
Wow,
which is pretty wild.
that's a very long time when you can ferment some stuff in like 3 days. Okay, so we're chopping 2 cloves of garlic, and we've already put in the juice of 1 lime or 2 tablespoons of lime if you're using pre-juiced. And the mince doesn't have to be perfect. And this is just our marinade. There's going to be more garlic in the dish, so keep that out. All right. And now we're going to measure out 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. You guys probably had a different one in the kit that I already had. An open fish sauce, but it's the same thing as you have. You can smell it or you can choose not to if you're nervous. I promise a lot of that smell will get cut with the acid and the sugar and everything we're mixing in. So I'm going to do 2 full tablespoons, and careful not to get it on your clothes. It's a vital part of Vietnamese cooking. And if you've had Vietnamese food before, it's very likely you've eaten fish sauce. Now we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of soy sauce or tamari, whatever you have. This is gonna bring like a bolder, darker flavor to the meat or tofu. Great. And then we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. If you're not a sugar person, that's totally okay. You can substitute it for honey or maple syrup, or totally skip it altogether if you don't like sweet. I really do like the balance, and traditionally this would be a palm sugar, not a brown sugar, but they taste similar in a lot of dishes, so we opt for brown sugar. And palm sugar often comes in these, I can show you mine in a minute, but they come in these cubes that are really beautiful, but they are not super great for the environment, so brown sugar is probably a better choice. I'm doing 2 tablespoons. With brown sugar, I kind of pat it down and flatten it and then dump. And then we're going to use a little bit of oil. You can use olive oil, cooking oil. I wouldn't suggest sesame oil. It's a little overpowering. If you did just a dash and use regular, and just like 1 tablespoon is fine. While I'm here with the oil, I'm also going to put a little to coat the bottom of my pan. The pan that I'm using today is a cast iron pan. If you don't have one, that's fine. You just want a pan that you can put at high heat. And just know that it's going to get a little smoky, and that's okay. That's going to be the brown sugar, and that's kind of part of the flavor that comes into this dish. It would be great to grill it outside. And then we're going to give that a little stir. Make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. Now, usually when we're cooking, we have salt. We do not add salt to this because there's already so much salt in the fish sauce. You could add pepper if you'd like, but we're going to have pepper in the sauce that we have. So, but black pepper could go well with this. And we're going to let this sit and absorb some of the flavors. That lime juice should keep, even though it's at room temperature, we're going to be cooking it soon, and that lime juice should keep the acidity is good from keeping the meat spoiling. So I'm going to put it over here off to the side, and we're going to let that sit. Now you're going to want to get out some kind of bowl that we can mix in that's big enough to hold, I don't know, like a cup at least, or at most, a cup at most, sorry. And we're going to make this sauce called Nuoc Cham, which is another more fish sauce. It's kind of a sweet and sour sauce that you could pour over on top of the vermicelli noodles. It's really pungent. You don't need a ton of it, but it's absolutely delicious. Goes really well with the chicken. And please just put in the chat if you're feeling like we're moving too fast, we can slow it down. Great. Okay, so we're going to start with 1/4 cup of fish sauce. I would measure that if you were able to in a liquid or however you can measure it. So it's quite a bit of fish sauce going in here. And that's going to be salty, but we'll make sure to get a good balance of salt and sugar and acid. Okay, next we're going to do 4 tablespoons of vinegar. So you can use your apple cider vinegar, or you can use rice vinegar if you had some in your pantry from a previous cooking workshop. And we're going to do 4 tablespoons of this. And it probably smells a little funky in your house right now. It's going to be delicious. So, how much oil for pan? Good question, Penelope. I did about a tablespoon and a half. What my goal is to coat the bottom of the pan, not to like deep fry anything in it. And I'm not sure what size pan everyone will use, but I want to be able to go like this, and really it's not moving around much because I'm just coating the bottom so nothing burns. Those are good.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to use water in this. We're going to use a 1/2 cup, so I'm going to use 2 of my 1/4. And the water is necessary, or else it would be a bit too strong. So we're going to do a 1/2 cup of water. Yahoo. Okay, and then let's go in order with how our recipe wrote it in case anyone's doing this at home. We're going to do 2 cloves of garlic. Folks, if you don't do well with raw garlic, you may want to do 1 clove or a little bit less, or substitute with like dry garlic powder. It is like a very big part of the flavor profile of this dish, but I know that some people and garlic don't get along, and it can burn their chest, give them heartburn, all of that. But it definitely, the flavor is a very important part. And I'm going to mince this a little bit smaller than I did before. I'm going to pay more attention to it. Now, folks, if you have like a little food processor, you could certainly use that to get your garlic nice and minced. And in fact, you could probably put everything in there if you wanted to. But we're just going to do it by hand. I've shared this trick before. One of my favorite things is if I have tofu, not just doing it on a pan, but doing like deep fried tofu vermicelli. One trick I learned when I was cooking at a vegan restaurant is if you buy extra firm tofu and freeze it overnight, the next day as it's unthawing, you squeeze that tofu and you get all the moisture out, all the excess water. And you can squeeze it a couple times. And it holds shape too. You can still cut it into cubes afterwards, and then you deep fry it, and it makes the absolute best fried tofu. I highly, highly suggest doing that. And folks, I don't know if I mentioned this, but We initially had green beans in this recipe because we didn't think we could get cucumber. And we were gonna slice the green beans super, super thin so they would be raw, but easy to digest because they're so small. But luckily the cucumbers came through, and that's really what it would be more traditionally served with than green beans. But kind of like in a raw papaya salad, you could also add green beans to this if they were sliced in teensy tiny rounds. Be super yummy. So you'll notice it's quite a bit of garlic going into the sauce. And you can, if you do have a garlic issue, you could always let it soak in here and then strain it out with a fine strainer. That could be an option. Okay, so 2 cloves of garlic, a half cup of water, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar or whatever sugar you have, 4 tablespoons of rice vinegar, and a 1/4 cup of fish sauce. That's what we have so far. And now we're going to use some red pepper flakes. If you don't like heat, leave them out, no problem. It's not gonna hurt anything too much. And I'm just gonna use like an eighth a tablespoon. Now, you can use regular red pepper. If you go to, I think, whatever Asian market is near you, you can also get Thai chilies, which are a little bit spicier. So I'm going to use 1/8 teaspoon of that. It's ground really nicely. If your pepper isn't ground super nicely and you don't want chunks, you can also use a knife to, break it up a little bit, break up those seeds. But I think when they sit in vinegar for a while, they'll be totally fine. The last step is to use more lime juice. So we're going to use 3 tablespoons of lime juice, which is going to be 1.5 limes, probably. These are pretty good limes, so 1. As I flip it and try to get a little extra out. 2. And I'm going to cut 1 more in half and just use half of it. We're doing fabulous on time, so if you need to slow down, don't worry about it. I can also stay on late and answer any questions.
Brooke, Penelope has a question about a type of vermicelli.
Oh, yeah. So round rice vermicelli, you probably want to use the same amount. I think we're going to use 7 ounces, I guess, for this meal. So I think the boxes that we had 14 ounces. And oh wait, I can look, it's right in front of me. Yeah. So we're gonna
7 ounces.
go ahead, say that again.
7 ounces.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that concludes our Nuoc Cham sauce, other than we need to stir it. And we really want to stir it pretty good for a minute to get that that sugar dissolved. And I wanted to show you something else because I like things really fishy and funky. I often buy these little dried shrimps at Asian markets and I use them in almost everything. You usually want to rehydrate them before using them, but I put them in my fish sauce and I let the fish sauce rehydrate them. So if you grow to love the funkiness of the seafood smells, you can pick up a bag of those. They're super cheap. They're great in soups. Like if I'm making a miso soup or something like that at home, I always put them in and they get a little bit bigger and super yummy. Okay. Now you're welcome. It's hard, like if you don't have a taste for this yet, I don't suggest just taking a spoonful of it. I would want to have it over the salad with all your vegetables. But if you're feeling like you've had this before and you want to try it, you can always spoon it and adjust your ratios. Maybe you want it a little bit sweeter. Maybe you want it spicier. Perfect for me. Some places that I've gone to eat at have like really sweet Nuoc Cham sauce, and some people really like that. And Personally, I don't like it super sweet, but you know, you could always add 1 to 2 more tablespoons if you think sweet is in your favor. All right. Let's see. So I think now we're going to prep some of our vegetables, and we can also get some boiling water going for our noodles, though there's no rush for that. And I'm going to set this aside with my chicken. We're going to use about half of the pack that you got of these stir-fried noodles, just like your best estimate. If you want to do the whole thing, just double. So I think we'll do like 4 to 6 cups of water that we can put these in, as long as the noodles are fully submerged. You're going to think of it like pasta if you've made pasta at home. So you're welcome to do all of them, and then you can make the salad again tomorrow. I would suggest putting the rice noodles in a Tupperware, or they dry out like really fast. So I'm probably gonna do like 8 cups into my pot, and I'm gonna start heating that. Okay, I ended up using 10, but I'm doing a big pot, and I'm probably gonna make all of my noodles because we eat a lot at my house. But you really only need half in this recipe. Okay, now while that's happening, just gonna clean up my station. We're gonna get preparing these vegetables. When I make like spring rolls or vermicelli noodles, and you've probably been in the class with me, I often do like a vinegar, water, and sugar and salt soak for the julienne carrots, or however you're serving your carrots. That's always something you can do, but it's definitely not necessary for this recipe. The fresh veggies are enough. These you probably notice are storage carrots. They're not beautiful. That's because they grew last year in the fall. So I typically don't like to do this with fresh carrots because the skins contain so much of the nutrients, or at least the microorganisms that you want, that I'm going to peel the skins of these carrots. You can, if you don't have a peeler, you can do that with a paring knife, just be extra careful. And then I think what I'm going to do is use a grater, and you don't have to use a grater either. I'll show you a couple different things that we could do for this. Y'all still see my cutting board? Yes, I could probably move over a little bit. Yay, I'm getting very excited. I am obsessed with Nuoc Cham sauce. I was telling Kyle earlier that I could basically drink it. It has grown on me quite a bit, so I don't know if you noticed how much my mouth was watering when I was making it. We can do, so if you don't have a grater, just like we always kind of do, you can cut the carrot in half after cutting the ends off, and then you can matchstick it, and just make like thin shreds, or you can even cut it in half and then in half again if you have a bigger carrot, and just make little matchsticks or stuff like that. That's perfect. You could also cut just thin little rounds. That would be fine. I like to use the grater when I'm not soaking carrots because it enhances the surface area of the carrots, therefore letting it take up the sauce or marinade a little bit faster. But I'm going to do 2 carrots and maybe even a little bit more, depending on the size of your carrot. These are just kind of like the vegetables that are going into this fresh noodle salad. And I have a bowl out and I'm just mixing them all together. But you could certainly, if you want it to be really pretty, don't do what I'm doing. Put them separate, because then you can make your salad up really beautifully into like little rainbow stripes of vegetables. So we'll do that for today. And I'm gonna grate. I put it on the largest setting and cut the end off.
I just mentioned in the chat, but what I sometimes like to do as well is just use the vegetable peeler once you've skinned the carrots to just keep using that vegetable peeler going the length of the carrot, and it makes these really nice, really thin kind of ribbons of carrot that it's just really nice to have that really thin carrot for making it really tender.
That's such a good idea. That's probably better than just cutting it up, for sure, if you have a peeler. Yay. Okay, so I've got my carrots. If you got a cucumber that was this size, you do not need to use the whole thing. Save it, make a nice cucumber salad tomorrow with some like rice vinegar or regular vinegar and sesame oil, sesame seeds, salt and pepper, do whatever you want. I'm gonna use half of it. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do, you can do rounds. You could do spears. So if I wanted to do spears, which I've seen vermicelli serve as spears, I would cut it in half down the middle and half down the middle and half down the middle, and you've got like these little long spears, and then I'd cut it in half again. Or you could do, my favorite cucumber cutting mechanism is the quick and dirty. I cut it in half, but not all the way through the end. And then I flip it and I cut it in half again. So I've already got it in quarters. Voila. And then I'm going to slice. So I have perfect quartered cuke. And of course they roll off the cutting board. Things always do. Okay, and I'm gonna do the whole half. I'm doing half of the cucumber. And I didn't peel this, and this is because these are like, they're English cucumbers. They have really soft skins. It doesn't feel particularly waxy to me. So I'm gonna leave the skin on, because again, where a lot of the nutrients are in the microorganisms. So I want it, and the fiber. All right, and the last thing to do would be to prepare your cilantro or mint or whatever herbs you want. This can also be great with basil in the summer season when you have basil available. So feel free to use that. Just the herbs, fresh herbs are so important in this dish. You can do a couple different things. One, you could kind of like pick off your leaves and leave them whole. And put them on top of the salad. Two is you could just kind of do what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose maybe, I don't know, 10 or so cilantro leaves that I'm going to use as a garnish, and I'm gonna chop those up quite finely. I didn't do my normal trick with cilantro, which is put it in a glass as soon as I get it. I picked up this kit today, so unfortunately I didn't have time to do that. But a great tip, when you have fresh herbs, you can put them in your fridge or out on your counter, just change their water every day, and they'll last much, much longer. You can also use a Ziploc bag, put a paper towel in there, get it a little bit damp. Okay, that's plenty of leaves. I just kept going, but I didn't need to. You can see what I'm doing here. And I'm just giving them a rough chop. And that's going to release their fragrances quite a bit more. You're breaking the cell walls of the plant. It smells so nice. Okay. And then if you have mint and you want to throw some in, I've got mint, too much mint at home. I'm going to add a little mint. That's always a nice one to add to this dish when you make it again. Great. And then your veggies should be ready. Oh, whatever salad greens you have, I forgot to mention this. Like mine are already ready to go. They've been washed. They are mixed greens. If you have romaine or iceberg or whatever kind of lettuce you've got, even if you don't have any, that's fine. You're going to want to prep that. So you might want to cut it into bite-sized pieces. Make sure you do that for yourself. Mine's just already ready to go, that lettuce mix. And then the last, I'm going to stop for a second. Does anyone have questions? Okay. We're going to turn our pan that has oil on it, ready for cooking the chicken or tofu, to medium heat, depending on your stove. I think medium heat should be fine. Our chicken's been in the marinade for a long time, and we are going to basically, we're going to take the chicken out of that marinade. We're not going to be using that. And we're going to put it on the hot pan once it's hot, cook it till it's golden brown, and flip it. It's pretty thin, so it's not going to take that long to cook. As I mentioned, you may get a little bit of smoke from this, so hopefully no one's smoke alarms go off. And I do suggest trying this out on a grill. Another thing besides, if you hate the fish sauce, it's like too much for you, something you can do instead is make a peanut sauce. And we've made a peanut sauce in this class before. And really, you can use soy sauce and peanuts, rice vinegar, brown sugar, a lot of the ingredients you already have. You could do a quick Google search, maybe even Kyle, you could Google one. And the peanut sauce would also go super good on top of this salad instead, if you're wanting something a little bit different than the intensity of the fish sauce. Okay, so my pan is heating up and I'm just finishing. I forgot about my favorite flavor modifier. Scallions. So I'm peeling off the outer ends of, I don't know, 4 small scallions. I'm just getting them nice and clean, getting off any wilties. You can do 2 scallions if you have decent size. I just love them, so I use a lot of them. And I use pretty much the whole thing until the top is like too soft to use. Let me turn down my noodles. I'm not in a rush to cook those right now. So I pretty much will use almost the whole thing. And give those a chop. I'm going to do it over here. Hopefully you can see me. And I'm just slicing them into rounds. So I take the tips off where the root hairs are. And I don't know, you can do them as big or small as you'd like. I typically do scallions at like a 1/4 or 1/4 inch or something like that. But you can do them bigger, smaller, whatever you like. I use scallions like crazy in my cooking. Like normally, if I made this chicken, I'd throw in a bunch of scallions with it as I'm cooking it. I just think they're so versatile, so delicious. Just a wonderful, wonderful flavor. All right, now all the vegetables are chopped. And we're ready for salad assembling shortly. Okay, so if you're where I am, we should probably check how long these noodles take to cook because my water's pretty much ready. We're going to cook them for 4 to 6 minutes until the noodles are tender but firm. And every box is going to have different instructions. So just keep that in mind. So once your water is boiling, put those in. If you can, set a timer. Thanks for doing that, Kyle. If you can set a timer, you can do that for 4 to 6 minutes. At 4 minutes, taste the noodle. You want it to be just like pasta, like maybe a little bit al dente. And then you're going to strain those noodles. So my pan is still heating up. It's not quite super hot yet. Whenever you have some free time, there's no big rush on this. You can open up your bean sprouts and you can drain the liquid. And as I said, I often use a colander. You can use the same one that you're going to use for the rice noodles to drain to get that extra salt and brine out of it. I want them to taste fresher. You can get fresh ones at Asian markets, and they're pretty darn cheap for a huge bag of them, but they go bad super fast. So we often stick with canned if we've got a little bit of a wait between when you go grocery shopping and when you cook with them. And you're probably not going to use the whole can here. So feel free to leave half in the brine if you'd like, or maybe experiment with making a salad with the rest of the bean sprouts. So I just gave them a gentle rinse to get that extra brine out. And I'm draining, and then I'll put them on like a little side dish for when we're ready to make our salad. They're not nearly as good as fresh, but they're still super, super tasty. And maybe tomorrow you can make a stir fry using half of these or something like that. And just give that a quick rinse so you can use it again for your pasta or rice noodles. Okay. So if you want to take things slow, I suggest not cooking your noodles at the same time. You can always just cook those at the end and start with your chicken or tofu. Your pan should be nice and warm, or hot rather. I'm just going to use some tongs. Expect to hear crackling. You might use a splash catch, like something like this. You have it. And here we go. I'm giving it one final little mix in the marinade. And I'm going to lay them as flat as I can on the pan. That's the sound you want to hear. And if it's not sizzling super hard, turn up the heat, because you do want these cooking on a pretty high heat. I was able to fit, I probably can fit all my chicken at once, but if you don't have room to flip them, then just do it in 2 rounds or something like that. Okay, so I'm at medium high heat now. Lovely. And I'm going to let that cook for a couple minutes on either side. I'll check them in a second. Great. You can give your sauce a little stir, make sure that sugar has dissolved. And basically the last step is we're going to cook these noodles. You can use a plate or a large bowl. You're going to drain the noodles and put a nice healthy serving of noodles on that bowl or plate. And then you're going to decorate it with all of your vegetables, put your chicken on top, and then you can drizzle your peanut sauce or your Nuoc Cham on top. You can always add more. Some things that I love to add are pickled vegetables, like if you add pickled daikon radish or regular radish, sliced radish, avocados, peanuts, fried onions, anything that you'd like to add, you can add on top. And I'll stay on for an extra minute since I know we haven't finished yet. A lot of steps in this one. And at this point, your water should probably be boiling. Take out some of my noodles, get those ready. And rice noodles are gluten-free naturally. They're just made from rice starch and water and salt. So if you go to a bulk Asian grocery, you can find huge packs of rice noodles, super cheap. It's like one of the few foods that are actually affordable that are gluten-free. Okay, I'm doing about that much for me and my partner's dinner. I'm going to go ahead and drop them in and then check on my chicken. I do like to give the noodles a little bit of a stir when I drop them in so they don't stick to the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to set a timer for like 4 minutes to check them. So now you should be wanting to flip your chicken. It should have a nice brown, almost like it's awesome if you can get like a little bit of a char on it. It's hard to do on a pan, but like that's exactly what I want. Hard for you to see. It's got some like beautiful brown charring, golden brown to a dark brown. That's what I'm looking for. If your pan is too dry, you can certainly add some more of that marinade in there. Just be careful because it's hot and it'll bubble up. Oh, gorgeous. And if you're having pieces stick really bad, you'll add more oil. And so you're going to get that brown sugar smoky scent coming in. That's really going to take over from the fish sauce that we marinated it in, and you're not really going to taste that much from the marinade. This is a messy meal. A lot of ingredients.
Hi.
Hi.
It's not steam. I've got a lot of liquid in the pan coming off of the chicken. It's not steam and it's not oil. It's moisture from inside the chicken, maybe because it was frozen. I don't know. So it's not like a dry, there's no searing really happening.
There's no searing happening. So I would maybe, it's still going to be delicious in the marinade, but if you want to try, you could try pulling that off that pan using a different pan. And because I'm sure it got out a lot of its water already. So you could try to sear it again.
Okay.
But I'm sure it's still going to be super yummy, even if you don't have the perfect char, you know?
And is opaque. When do I know it's done?
You know, well, probably about 2 to 3 minutes. They're really small pieces that we cut up. So it really 2 to 3 minutes on either side, and you're definitely safe if you cut nice and small pieces, like I'm sure you did when you watched our video.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to show you what mine looks like right now. So this is exactly my like ideal piece of chicken. It's like browning on the outside, golden, super yummy. It still needs a minute though. As you finish, you can pull off that chicken, I like to get the excess oil off, and I put it on a plate with a little paper towel as you're finishing. So it is getting a little smoky in my house, and that's okay, that's normal. You can also basically cycle through which chicken are on the inside or the hottest part of your pan. And something you can do just to be safe is you can cut open your chicken and check if the juice runs clear, if it's white all the way through, it's finished. So this is done. So I'm going to pull off a bunch of my finished chicken. And then if you started your noodles when I did, your timer will go off very soon.
If you're just getting to cooking your chicken, another quick little tip is I know that Brooke's moving around the pieces to kind of make sure that some of those pieces on the outside of the pan are getting to the inside. Sorry, there's a siren. One moment. But aside from moving the chicken around the pan to get things to heat evenly, you want to try to avoid moving your chicken too much, because when you move it around a lot, if you're stirring in the pan, you'll interrupt that sear. So leaving it in place for like 2-3 minutes.
Yeah,
as much as you
mine already
can.
had a nice sear. That's a great point. Cool. So I just tried one of my rice noodles. I'm gonna say it probably needs more like 5 minutes. Because I did 4. And they're like a little too al dente for me, but each his own. I would leave it on for like 5 and a half. I'm going to show you my chicken in just a minute so you can see the color. Just set my timer for 1 more minute for the rice noodles. I just have 3 more thicker pieces I cut going, but it's so hard to figure out which one is the nicest camera. There we go. Nice golden brown. Some nice sear points. Looks really good. All right, and I believe all of my chicken's done. I turned the heat of my pan off. You can always leave them on an extra minute if you want to be safe. Looks like even though we might be a few minutes over, and I'm sorry about that, but if you want, you can hop off if you want, but I'm gonna maybe plate some up and see how that goes in just a minute. I have a whole lot of dishes everywhere today. I'm sure y'all do too.
Final product.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Nice work.
All right.
Thank you for
Well,
joining
guys,
us.
I'm gonna go eat.
Okay. Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
too. All right, my noodles are done. They're perfect. So I would say a good 5.5 minutes is where you'd want to do to make them perfect. Great. And then I'm gonna get some of that excess moisture. And folks, I would put these like right into a Ziploc bag or Tupperware. They do dry out so fast. So if you're not gonna eat them all, make sure to do that. You can also run them under cold water and have this salad be like a cold salad. That's oftentimes how it's served. So you're welcome to do that. I personally like it better when it's nice and warm. So I got a big hunk of rice noodles. Put those in the center of my plate. I'm going to add some, you need to see. I'm going to add some scallions, some cilantro, some mint, lots of cucumbers. Even more. I'm gonna put some chicken on top. Where does this go? Some of my bean sprouts as well. You can garnish it with lime. It already smells so good. Some carrots. And then a nice hefty few spoonfuls of your Nuoc Cham sauce. If you've got peanuts at home, you can crush up some peanuts on there too. And there you go. Beautiful. Thanks for coming, everyone. I hope you enjoy your food. Hope your chicken turned out good. Hope your tofu turned out good. If you have any questions or suggestions, please fill out that feedback survey that we send out. That actually, like, someone requested this recipe, and we're thankful for that because I love cooking it. And that we try to make the recipes you want to do, so don't forget to fill that out. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next month.